layer 2 information. In this case, the Ethernet header information of the Ethernet frame. In this video, we're going to take a look at how a switch builds its MAC address table. Once again, a switch makes its forwarding decision based on layer 2 information. In this case, the Ethernet header information of the Ethernet frame. So let's take a look at how this switch builds its MAC address table. On these 4 hosts, I have abbreviated MAC addresses, AAAA through DDDD. So here we're going to have H1 send an Ethernet frame to H4. So the source MAC address will be AAAA, the MAC address of H1's Ethernet NIC, and the destination MAC address will be that of H4's Ethernet NIC, DDDD. Okay, so H1 sends that frame onto the Ethernet switch. When the switch receives any Ethernet frame, the first thing it does is it looks at the source MAC address and says, have I learned anything? And what it's looking at is it sees that on its port, Fast Ethernet 01, is the source MAC address, AAAA. Does that exist in its table? And it sees, it says, no, it doesn't. Because it doesn't already exist, it adds this source MAC address to the incoming port, Fast Ethernet 01. Let's put that right there. So that's how the switch builds its table. Now it wants to go ahead and forward the frame. So now it looks at the destination MAC address. It says, is this MAC address in my table? And as we can see, DDDD is not in its table. This is known as an unknown unicast. From the perspective of the switch, it's like, I don't know where to send it. So what it does is it acts like the old Ethernet hubs. It will actually send it out every port except the incoming port. So each one of these devices will actually receive this Ethernet frame. When H2 receives it, its Ethernet NIC card compares its MAC address to the destination MAC address of the Ethernet frame and goes, we're not a match. So it ignores the rest of the frame. See, H3 does the same thing. My MAC address doesn't match the MAC address of the destination MAC, ignore the frame. H4, when it receives this Ethernet frame, its Ethernet NIC card goes, yeah, that is my MAC address. We are a match. So it goes ahead and receives the entire frame. Now let's see what happens when DD sends an Ethernet frame back to AAAA, or H4 sends an Ethernet frame to H1. Okay, so in this case, we have H4 as the source, and the destination is H1. Now, so far, this is the MAC address table of our switch. So H4 sends the Ethernet frame. It's received on port Fast Ethernet 04 by the switch. Remember, the first thing a switch does, it wants to learn. It examines the source MAC address and says, have I learned anything new? It says, I've received this source MAC address on my port, Fast Ethernet 04. It's not in my MAC address table, so it adds the MAC address. Next, it says, I need to forward the frame. Do I know where the destination MAC address is? It looks it up and says, yeah, I know that's on my Fast Ethernet 01 port. So it goes ahead, in this case, it knows about where this destination MAC address is, and it can filter the frame and just send it out this single port. So you can see how Ethernet switches build their tables, learn about where the Ethernet source MAC addresses are, and then can start to filter forward these frames out specific ports. Let's take a final look here at another frame going from H1 to H4 and see how things have changed now. If H1 has another frame to send back to H4, the source MAC address is AA, the destination MAC address is DD. And let's take a look at the difference from the first time this happened. The frame enters the switch. The switch says, do I know about this source MAC address on Fast Ethernet 01? Says, yeah, I've learned about it previously. Okay. So switches tend to keep this information in there for about 5 minutes. It says, okay, I've learned that, no problem. How about forwarding the frame? Where am I going to send it? So it looks at the destination MAC address, says, do I know where DDDD is? It says, this time I do know. It's over here on port Fast Ethernet 04. So instead of sending it out all ports like we did originally when this information was not here, now it can send it out just Fast Ethernet 04 on its way to H4.